For all new and current subscribers, welcome back to Resilient Love.
Resilient is being able to overcome difficult situations. This podcast is about love, tips on life,
and how to level up in your business.
Let's get started on the journey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Resilient Love. Today we have with us Miss Sharita Green. How are you doing, Miss Sharita?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on today. I am blessed and privileged to be here.
Yes, we are so happy to have you with us. And so we want our listeners to get to know you before we get into our questions. So tell us more about you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I am, in general, just a laid back person most of the time. When I was younger, I was the sweetest little kid, and but it was a disadvantage sometimes because that bullying thing came in, and they were like, well, Sharita's not going to say anything, so we can say anything to her and bother her. But as I got older, and when I left home, then it's like I began to develop more of a backbone. Something about moving to going to school in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah.
With a lot of different types of people made me develop more of a backbone.
Right.
So, but I was able to attend school, and I was like, I feel like I'm being mean, but I can't be nice. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm trying to figure it out. But I was able to get involved with a church community when I was in college. And so that's when I really began to develop my relationship with God. It was kind of during those years that I was inquisitive to know like more about the word. In high school, I just went to church, but I honestly don't remember much except I sang in the choir. So I sang in the youth choir, and it was a lot of fun. But as far as the word and development, I was new, so it didn't really, hit home to me. So the church was a very powerful ministry. It had a strong college campus ministry, and so we kind of began to develop a relationship on some of each other. And so I did that for a while, and then I actually ended up leaving the campus due to financial reasons. Due to financial reasons, I lost the scholarship after my first year. I'm like, why? It's not my fault. I didn't pick this class. So it was hard for me to get my credits up. So I actually ended up moving into a low-income public housing community neighborhood, and that's where I began to have a passion for working with, I guess, low income or underprivileged children. So I began doing that, but that's kind of like in my middle 20s was when I really was like, I need to kind of find out more about, and I had a few mentors at that time that were really strong in the faith, and I was really amazed at how strong in the faith they were because they didn't have a lot. And I'm amazed, and I was so intrigued by how much faith they had and how much they trusted God. And it really showed me that God can use anybody because he used them mightily. It didn't matter how much you had, because I know I didn't have a lot. I'm a college student, so and that's why I'm staying in the public in the low income public housing community, so I don't have to pay much. And I was a work study student as well when I was going to school. So that's where I kind of began my journey and with God.
Awesome. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my husband's got another question for you.
So you expressed to us your journey with God. What was the turning point for you to get closer to God?
So I would say that when I was in college, I had a male best friend, and so we did everything together. It was like 19 years old, 20 years old. We did everything. So we went to church together. Our parents lived like 10 minutes from each other in the suburbs. We were working with the children together in the neighborhood. He ended up getting an apartment there. I ended up getting an apartment there. to the point where it was like overboard.
Oh,
It was so, we spent so much time together that he was my best friend. Like literally, he was my best friend, and our parents, you know, they knew each other and everything, and so it was a lot of fun. It was like fun, you know, being with him, and then we were like mentors to the young kids in the neighborhood. So we would take them places or taking to eat. We would taking to church with us, honestly, seriously, like on the train, the parents should like take them to church. I remember one time I had a parent, and the child was just knocking on my door, and I'm like, so I guess that was my cue, like, he's come to church with me today. Like, I don't know what that means. So,
yeah.
So it was fun. So what happened was he began to go back to school. He was in school, but he was taking some time off, so he began to go back to school. When he went back to school, our relationship began to kind of tear, because he began to meet other people, which, you know, you should, but I guess I just wanted to be best friends forever kind of thing. Like, I wasn't interested in meeting anybody else. And I've always gotten along better with guys than I have girls. And so for me, it's like it was a very, very difficult time, because we were close for about 2 years. And so that's when I was like, okay, I became kind of in a depressive state, honestly. I didn't know what to do, because I didn't have anybody else that I felt like I could trust, knowing the situation I was in, who's going to help me with these kids that we've been mentoring. And so there's a situation where he had to end up leaving the neighborhood, but I felt like I was by myself. And so I had to make a decision, even though I was going to church, I had mentors, but I had to make a decision and say, okay, now I think I want to get to know who this guy really is, because I was in a void state, in a desperate state of loneliness and slight depression. And so I said, well, I need to either stay in this place, or I'm going to make a decision to say, I'm going to get out of this place. So it wasn't like somebody coached me or taught me or mentored me. It was more that I had to make a decision. And I think a lot of times when it comes to the word and it comes to being a believer anyway, God gives us free will. God gives us choice. And so they had to make a decision, like before they came into the promised land. God said, you know, or who's the God that they're going to serve? And they said, we will serve you. And they had to make a decision. And of course they didn't, but they said they would. But
Right.
God gets a decision to say, hey, are you going to follow my word, my principles, my commandments, my laws? It's up to us, to make that decision. If we're really going to walk in dominion and have the authority. And I feel like a lot of people are on the fence or wishy-washy in God, because they're still not sure of where they stand in the relationship with him. And they're easily swayed, but the more you spend in just listening to gospel music, Christian music, whatever you like, the more even if you listen to a sermon, there's like 100 different Bibles out there. So you don't have to have the King James and say, I don't understand the Bible. So that's not an excuse anymore.
Okay. Right.
Right, Ken, I don't want to read it because I don't understand it. No, it's like there's so many versions, it's ridiculous. So you can find something, even if you start with like a children's Bible, whatever it is, to find something, because it's like if the enemy is very cunning and very strategic and very deceitful, and he said, Paul, I know, Jesus, I know, but who are you? So the enemy even knows who we are. And so if you are someone that the enemy is who he goes roaming to and fro, whom he may devour. So if you are not strong enough to be able to withstand him, what do you do? And so that's why we have to have that relationship with God, that we first turn to him. But if you don't have the word, or if you don't have the worship, or you don't have prayer, then how can you really stand in times of battle, and when things are coming against you, or when temptation comes? Because it's going to come. It says in this world we will have temptation, trials and tribulations. It's going to come. But what do you do when it happens? So it's just us making that decision to say that I will follow God.
Yeah.
I will follow God. And it is a decision. It truly is a decision. And people, of course, they may, fall off, or they may come back and things like that. And, that's where discipleship comes in. That's where you have to really take the time. And that's why I ask questions, because take the time to have people ask and think and reflect, and go back to it. Go back and read what you said, because there's power in the word. There's power in the word of God. And if you forget, or you feel like you're around people that are not encouraging you, you can always pick up something where you can encourage yourself. And that's what we have to do a lot of times. Sometimes we have to encourage ourselves. And not everybody is as strong. A lot of times it can take a while to get to this point, to say that I'm okay with not having, the best of the best right now, or I'm okay with not having the best relationship, or if a relationship at all, or I'm okay with being single, because you have to ask yourself, who's in your circle. Are you being encouraged, empowered, or are you being taken away and strayed away by the wolves, appearing themselves to be sheep? And then you wonder what happened. You wake up one day and you're like, well, what happened? And because it wasn't always like this. But it's the only way we're going to stand strong is to make that decision to stand for the Lord.
Yes, that was good. I hope y'all caught those nuggets. That was, yeah. So that really leads me right into my next question, because I know you hit on the point of how things can stir you in life. And I mean, you hit that point very good in your identity chapter. But I want to ask you something related to the writing itself. What was the hardest chapter? Like, what was the hardest part of the process?
I think trying to hone in on concepts that everyday people go through on a day-to-day basis, because there's so many different avenues and so many different things that people deal with. But it's like, okay, what areas do most people deal with, or have they dealt with? And at some point they probably will deal with if they haven't. But these are all areas where people have, or will maybe possibly deal with these particular things. So I wanted to, the hardest thing was figuring out, okay, how do I bring in the pains and wounds that people have and that they're dealing with, and what are the answers to those situations and those pains and their wounds that they're having in those particular times. So that's why I really I focused on those areas. So that was the hardest thing, figuring out which to focus on, which area to focus on, so that way they can get the best assistance and the best help and the best place where they can get encouragement, and where they can be empowered to continue to press on if you don't have a hand to hold, or if you don't have a shoulder to lean on. I can go in and it's like, oh my gosh, I had like, say someone had like a really crazy day, and there's just so much going on, like they're losing loved ones, or they've lost their job, and their mind is like, God, where are you? Kind of like that Job experience. Where are you? What did I do wrong? Where are you? But we have to have a shift in our mindset to know that he is present. And even with Job, God allowed the devil to afflict him, So sometimes we think that stuff is happening because of something that we did, and that may not even be the case. It may be saying, hey, have you considered my servant? So that means that sometimes God's like, hey, I want to take you to another level. I want to take you to another place. But that it's that wilderness process that's so uncomfortable, because he didn't know what the outcome was going to be. He didn't know exactly what, he didn't know what was going to happen. But sometimes we want to know the end from the beginning, and God is the only one who really knows that. And we know in part, we prophesy in part, but God is the one who knows the fullness of everything. So just picking areas where it could help anybody, like pretty much at any age, anything you're dealing with, health issues, identity issues, which is very, very prevalent. That's happening in America today, because the society is changing as far as what they define identity to be. And God has already established an identity for us, and we're always people are trying to change God's laws and God's plans, but they want to get mad at God when stuff's not working. I'm like, he has the blueprint, you know what I'm saying, in the word. And people just want to rebel, they want to buck because it's just not, you know, what they want, you know. And so, you know, knowing the identity that we're made in his image, and that we're not to present ourselves in a way that's going to please man, but in a way that is going to please God. We honor man and we respect authority, but we're not living our lives as people pleasers. We want to make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, that God is pleased with us, you know, and that's what matters. Not, you know, if you're trying to fit in, or you're trying to go to see this movie, or wear these type of clothes, and because I'm, you know, whatever fashion is, like, I've never been a fashionable person. So, you know, but it's like, if you don't fit in these type of groups, like, you know, people join different things because they feel like that's going to show them their identity, especially at the teenage age, show them their identity. And so by high school, they're already picking an identity. But I'm like, is this truly the identity that God has for you, or are you trying to conform to someone else's identity to fit in? And I think a lot of times it's just done, you know, so subconsciously, maybe even as adults, that we don't even realize, you know, what we've done, you know. And it's kind of like, well, what am I doing for God? Like, how am I representing him, you know? And you begin to ask those questions.
Yes. That was so good.
That was.
I hope y'all caught that.
Good nuggets.
Come on now.
Our next question is, what is the main message you want readers to take from your book?
I want them to feel like they are empowered to do anything, and that they don't have to settle for what's happening in their community, you know, what's happening with them internally, what's happening with them externally, that they don't have to settle, that regardless of the situation that they are in, if they feel like they're in the ashes, if they feel like they're in the pit, if they feel like they're in the bottom, it doesn't have to be that way. And that through Christ, he pulls us up out of the pit. You know, he causes us to stand upon the rock, which is firm, which is solid. So whenever you have a situation in life, you can go to the word of God. You can go to a place of prayer. You can go to God knowing that he hears you. And a lot of times, because he doesn't respond the way that, you know, he may want, you know, we want him to respond, we think that he's not listening. But as a father, the father knows best. So he's going to give us what we need. He's going to give us and provide provision for us. But to know that regardless of your situation, you can always call upon the Lord, and to know that he can and he will pull you out, and that you trust more in the word of God. You trust more in the power of the cross than you do anything else, and that you stand on that word, and that because of that you'll have victory.
Yes.
So it's called the good fight. Victory is yours. So there's going to be fights that we're going to encounter. There's physical fights people actually get in. There's fights they may be dealing with spiritually. But whatever your fight is, you know, someone could be battling for employment right now, or they could be having concerns in their body. Whatever's happening in their community could be affected, and whatever's happening politically could be affecting whatever that fight is, to know that with Christ, they can have victory, but it's only through him they can have victory. And that there's a confidence to know that they are not alone, regardless of how long it may take. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next month, but there will be progression, and that you will see the hand of God, you know, upon your life. As long as you remain dedicated and faithful to him, and you remain in his will, which means you're not making him mad, you're not making him upset, you're walking by the fruit of the spirit, you know, not walking in sin and not walking in carnality, and just knowing what those are. But when you're living in the righteousness of God, he will provide and take care of his people. The Israelite nation went through a lot, and there's people that complain, there's people that murmur, but there's people that he did bring out, into the promised land, because they stayed the course, because they didn't complain, because they didn't murmur, and they follow the voice that God had for that appointed time. So there's times where it's like, okay, I may not see and know the path in this wilderness place, but I know that God, you are leading me into a better place. And I know that it's going to be better than what it is right now. So I just have to trust and stand on that word. And so, just even for me financially, it's like, okay, I may not have consistent work at this time, but I've always been working, because God always, there may have been some times where I wasn't, but God has always made an open door and has always made a way of provision for me in that area. Mm-hmm. And so, because I trust God now, you begin to get a track record like, hey, God, I know that you will do this, and I know that you will provide, because I do trust God. I'm not trusting a person in the natural, or for those who are single, if you're a single woman, trusting a man to say, hey, well, I need $300, or I need $200, or I need $500, and trusting them to be your source of supply. It has to get to the point where God is the one that says he will supply all your needs, but do you really truly believe that? Or do you have, as the world has, they have backups,
Right.
They have backups. If this doesn't work, then what's going to happen? But it's really a trust. It's really your faith that he's testing. He tests you to prove you, to see what was in their heart before they came into the promised land. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like when you have enough is enough, like you don't have anything else and nobody else can do anything for you. It's like, okay, it's just God. It's just God. So.
Yeah, man, that's so good. How can we support? What's next for the ministry?
I really just want people to be empowered, and I want them to be encouraged. My goal is to have the Facebook group, Arise Warriors, where people feel like they need that support system and they need that help, and to have like live prayer, to have prayer with them, to have live prayer with them, and to feel like somebody's connecting with them, where they can have that extended hand, because everybody's not can say and just jump and say it's just me and God. Some people can, but some people need more of that assistance to get to that point because of their journey and their past, and it's harder for them to let go of people. But that's what I desire, is to be able to be a support system and to help walk people through the process of what they're dealing with, what they're battling, and how they can speak and walk in victory. And sometimes for me, it's like, it's just speaking the word. Like, I don't care how I may feel. I may have a pain in my body, but I'm gonna lay hands on myself.
That's right.
Some oil, and I'm just gonna speak the word over myself. So a lot of the things that I've done or dealt with is because it's not because I've seen it, but it's really by faith, And I know faith without works is dead. So it's like, okay, I gotta work this faith. And so just to be able to assist people and watch people and see them grow and to see them empowered, because what I do not want the enemy to feel like he has a hold on his people, mm-hmm. Whether they know God or not. But the enemy is so quick to grip people and claw people and just grab a hold of them, thinking and keep them like bound and in chains, and thinking that, not even have them thinking that there's a way out. But there is, because he's a liar, he's a deceiver, and his mission is to blind the people and to keep them in a place of darkness and scarcity and lack. But that's not the God that I serve, that we serve. That's not who God is. And so just having the opportunity to do that is my goal.
Yes. Wow. So y'all better look out for the Arise Warriors Facebook group. Look out for it, because I know I am. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Yes. Make sure you go to Amazon and get the book. You can order it via paperback or Kindle. And be sure to get the good fight. Fight the good fight. The victory is yours. So Be sure to get that. And thank you, Miss Green, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anything you want to say?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I just got some word for the day. Just to So,
yeah, another fill up.
Yeah. So, and I know it's going to bless our audience as well. So continue to do your great things in the ministry.
So thank y'all. This has been another episode of Resilient Love. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Resilient Love Podcast. We wanted to take this opportunity to also let you know that you can help us by committing to a monthly fee of 99 cents, $2.99, or $9.99. Those contributions help us to keep this movement of resilient love going. Blessings to all listeners and subscribers. Thank you all.
Resilient Love.